Picture this. You're in your bunk, lights out. The block quiet, except for the occasional creak of old timber. Then you hear it. Boots. Hundreds of them. Not the modern combat boot, but the hobnailed ammunition boot of 1916. The sound builds steady, relentless, coming down the corridor toward your room. You sit up. The door is closed. The sound passes straight through it. This isn't a story from the trenches. This is Aldershot Garrison 2024, the home of the British Army. And for the last 18 months, the dead of the Somme have been walking these corridors again. Between 1st July and 18th November 1916, the British Expeditionary Force under Field Marshal Sir Douglas Haig launched the largest offensive the Army had ever attempted. The plan was simple on paper. A week-long artillery bombardment to obliterate the German wire and dugouts, followed by a massed infantry advance that would punch a hole clean through the lines. Haig believed it would be the breakthrough that ended the war. Instead, on the first day alone, the British suffered 57,470 casualties, 19,240 of them killed, the bloodiest single day in the history of the British Army. By the time the offensive was called off 141 days later, British losses stood at over 420,000. The ground gained barely 7 miles at its deepest. Most of those men had trained right here in these very barrack blocks. The Powell's battalions, entire streets of mates from Accrington, from Leeds, from the mining towns of Wales, drilled on the parade grounds of North Camp and South Camp, wrote their last letters in these rooms, then marched down the same roads you drive every day to catch the train to Southampton. The Cambridge Military Hospital, just a mile from the main garrison, was the first base hospital to receive the shattered survivors straight from the casualty clearing stations. Its corridors ran red for months. And now, in the old Victorian barrack blocks that still stand in North Camp, those same red brick monsters with their iron bedsteads and echoing stairwells, the men who never came home have started coming back. We've spoken to 8 serving soldiers, all from the same company, all posted to the same block between 2022 and 2024. What they describe is consistent, detailed, and terrifyingly specific. These aren't vague shadows or tricks of the light. These are men in 1916 kit, carrying 1916 rifles, speaking with 1916 accents. Chapter 1. The Marching in the Night. My name is Tom Atkins. Yes, I'm the same as the famous poster soldier. People still make the joke every time I sign a form or introduce myself. I joined the Rifles in 2021, finished training at Catterick, and got posted to Aldershot Garrison in March 2023. They billeted us in North Camp, Block 47. One of the old Victorian red brick monsters with cast-iron staircases, narrow windows that rattle when the wind comes off the plane, and 4-man rooms that still smell faintly of boot polish and damp wool even after 100 years of occupation. The block feels heavy, not just from the thick walls. There's something else. You notice it most after lights out, when the place settles. Pipes knock, floorboards sigh, and sometimes, very faintly, you think you can hear someone else breathing in the corridor. The first time it happened properly was a Monday night in late February. I was on guard duty, real stag, not the pretend stuff they do on exercise. 0-200 hours. Temperature hovering just above freezing. I was doing the slow external walk around of the block, torch beam cutting through the mist that always seems to hang low over the parade square after dark. That's when I heard them. Boots. Not modern issue. Not the soft rubber tread of today's combat boots. These were hobnailed ammunition boots, metal studs on leather soles striking concrete in perfect time. Left, right, left, right. A full platoon, at least. The rhythm was slower than anything we drill now, more deliberate. The way men move when they're carrying 60 pounds of 1916 webbing, a Lee Enfield bayonet, gas mask, haversack, entrenching tool, and the weight of knowing they're going somewhere they might not come back from. I stopped dead. The sound was coming from inside the block, from the long ground floor corridor that runs the entire length of the building. But the block was locked. Everyone was meant to be in their racks. No one had signed out. No one had come in late. I knew that because I checked the book myself at 23:45. I keyed the side door with my fob, stepped inside, and the sound grew louder. Marching, steady, unhurried. The emergency lights were on, those dull orange strips that make everything look like a crime scene. I followed the noise down the corridor, boots echoing back at me, heart rate climbing. Then I saw them. They came round the corner at the far end like a khaki tide. 40, maybe 45 men. Service dress tunics buttoned to the throat, puttees wrapped tight over calves, Brody helmets tilted slightly forward, our rifles at the slope on the right shoulder, faces pale under the brim shadows. Some had dark stains on their chests and sleeves, wet-looking, spreading. One boy near the front had no lower jaw. The wound was clean and black and impossible. They marched straight toward me. I raised my torch. The beam passed clean through the lead man's chest. No shadow, no reflection on the buttons. He didn't flinch. None of them did. They kept coming, eyes fixed ahead, mouths closed, breathing visible in the cold air, even though I couldn't feel my own breath misting any more. When the front rank was 3 paces away, the man in the lead, sergeant's stripes, waxed moustache, looked directly at me. His eyes were very clear, very tired. He spoke. Quiet. South London accent, the old kind you almost never hear anymore. Keep your head down, son. They're waiting for us at the wire. The words weren't loud, but they went straight through me like damp cold. Then the whole rank walked into me. There was no impact, just a sudden plunging sensation, like stepping fully clothed into an ice bath. The smell hit next. Wet wool, cordite, pipe tobacco, blood, and something sweeter and worse underneath. The marching sound rolled past me and kept going down the corridor. I spun round. Nothing. Empty passage, flickering orange light, my torch shaking in my hand. I stood there for what felt like minutes, but was probably seconds. Then instinct kicked in. I hit the Pressel on my radio. 0, this is perimeter. Contact. Multiple personnel inside the block, not responding to verbal challenge. The duty sergeant's voice came back, half amused. Atkins, you been on the rip again? Nobody's signed out. I'm not joking, Sarge. I saw them. Full kit. 1916 pattern. Silence. Then the camera feed must have caught my face. Stay there. I'm coming down. He arrived in under 2 minutes. Looked at me. Looked at the empty corridor. Looked at my hands, still trembling. He didn't laugh. That was the first night. It wasn't the last. Chapter 2. Blood in the showers. Corporal Michael Reynolds here. 2nd Battalion. The Rifles. Been in since 2016. Long enough to have done 2 tours in Helmand and 1 in Iraq. long enough to think I'd seen every kind of horror a body can produce. Turns out I was wrong. I got posted to North Camp, Block 47, at the start of January 2023. Same block Tom Atkins was in. We were in the same platoon. When he came back from Stag that February night, looking like he'd seen his own funeral, most of us took the piss. Called it the ghost train doing laps. Blamed the central heating pipes, the wind, too much caffeine on duty. Standard barrack room banter. I was the loudest. 2 nights after Tom's sighting, I learned why nobody should laugh at that sort of thing. It was a Wednesday morning. Company PT had finished at 06:15, 5 miles round the garrison perimeter in the dark, followed by a quick circuit of burpees and press-ups on the square just to remind us we were still soldiers. Everyone was knackered, sweaty, desperate for a shower. The shower block on the ground floor of 47 is one of the originals. 6 cubicles in a row, white tiles gone cream with age, metal shower heads that either scald you or freeze you. No in between. The hot water never lasts more than 3 minutes before it turns tepid. I was last in because I'd stayed back to help the PT. I pack away the kit. By the time I got there, the place was empty, except for steam hanging in the air and the drip-drip of a leaking tap somewhere. I stripped off, hung my PT kit on the hook outside cubicle 6, the one right at the end, and stepped under the spray. Water was barely warm. I closed my eyes, let it run over my head, tried to wash away the ache in my quads. Then the temperature dropped. Not gradually, instant. Like someone had opened every window in Siberia and pointed them at me. My skin tightened, gooseflesh racing up my arms and back. The steam vanished. My breath came out in thick white clouds. The water hitting my shoulders felt like ice needles. And then the screaming started. High, raw animal. Coming from cubicle 1, the far end. Not pain exactly. More terror mixed with disbelief. The sound a man makes when something impossible is happening to his body. I thought someone had slipped, cracked their skull on the tiles, maybe severed an artery. Instinct took over. I yanked back the plastic curtain of cubicle 1. There was a lad standing under the showerhead. Not one of ours. Khaki tunic soaked dark. Puttees unravelled. Boots still laced. Brodie helmet tipped back on his head. He was on his knees in the puddle, both hands pressed to his abdomen. His fingers were laced through loops of intestine that spilled out between them like wet grey rope. Blood. Real blood, thick and arterial, pulsed between his knuckles and ran down his forearms in sheets. The water streaming over him turned crimson the moment it touched the wound, swirling pink, then red down the drain. He looked up at me. Face of a kid, maybe 18, 19. Valley's accent, Merthyr, maybe Pontypridd, thick enough you could cut it. "They told us the wire was cut, Corp," he said. Voice calm, almost conversational, like he was explaining why he was late for parade. "They said the guns had done for it. We believed them." He coughed once. A wet, bubbling sound. Blood sprayed across the tiles in a fine mist, speckling my bare legs. The smell hit me properly then. Iron, cordite, voided bowels, the faint, sickly sweetness of early gangrene. Battlefield smells. I've smelled them before. You never forget. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. He tried to stand, slipped into his own blood, went down again. One hand came away from his stomach, holding something small and dark. A piece of shrapnel, maybe. He looked at it like he didn't understand what it was doing there. Then he started to fade. Not dissolved dramatically like in films. Just thinned. The edges of his uniform blurred. The colour leached out of the blood on the tiles. The water kept running, but it ran clear now. The smell faded. The screaming, his screaming, cut off mid-breath. The cubicle was empty. I stood there, naked, water still pounding on my shoulders, shaking so hard my teeth rattled. I don't know how long. Long enough that the hot water finally gave out completely, and I was standing under pure cold. Next thing I remember is the duty NCO banging on the shower room door. "Reynolds, you all right in there? You've been screaming like a banshee." I didn't answer. Couldn't. Just turned the tap off with numb fingers and walked out dripping, grabbed my towel. She wrapped it round my waist. He looked at my face, looked at my legs, still speckled with tiny red dots that weren't there anymore. He didn't ask questions, just nodded once. "Get dressed, Corp. Narfy's open. First round's on me." That night, the whole platoon got quietly hammered in the corner of the Narfy bar. Nobody took the piss out of Tom anymore. Nobody mentioned ghosts. We just drank, stared into our pints, and listened to the wind rattle the windows like distant artillery. Because we all knew now. They weren't just walking these corridors. They were still bleeding in them. Chapter 3. The Letter That Shouldn't Exist. Lance Corporal Benjamin Harris, 2nd Battalion, the Rifles. Company Clerk. Been in since 2019. I handle the paperwork, leave forms, course nominations, injury reports, up the endless tide of green forms that keeps the army turning. Most days it's mind-numbing. Some days it's oddly comforting. You know exactly where you stand when everything has a reference, number and a signature block. I got posted to North Camp, Block 47, in April 2023. Same block as Tom and Mick. By then, the stories were already circulating quietly. Nobody shouted them in the cookhouse anymore. They got passed in low voices over brews in the drying room or during stag handovers. People stopped laughing. They just listened, nodded, and checked their own rooms a bit more carefully before lights out. I found the letter on a Tuesday evening. I'd come off duty early, changed into civvies, and gone to my locker to grab my phone charger. The locker's one of those tall metal ones, bolted to the wall in the corridor. Standard issue, dented. I painted institutional green about 20 years ago. I opened it, reached for the cable, and my fingers brushed something that didn't belong. An envelope. Plain buff manila, the kind they used before everything went digital. No stamp, but a postmark stamped in faded purple ink. Aldershot, 28th of June 16. The handwriting on the front was careful, almost schoolboy neat. Addressed in black fountain pen, Lance Corporal B. Harris, Room 312, Block 47. North Camp, Aldershot Garrison. My stomach dropped. I hadn't told anyone my locker combination. No one should have been able to put anything in there without me knowing. I pulled the envelope out. The paper felt old, brittle at the edges, like it had been folded and unfolded 100 times. I tore it open carefully. Inside was a single sheet of lined notepaper, torn from a soldier's small writing pad. In the ink had browned with age. "My dearest Elsie, we're moving up tonight. The guns have been going for a week solid, never stops, day or night. The lads are cheerful enough, cracking jokes about getting to Bapaume for tea tomorrow, but I can see it in their eyes. They're scared, same as me. Captain says the wire's been cut proper this time, and the shells have done for the machine guns. We believe him because we have to. If I don't come back, tell little Alfie his dad wasn't frightened. Tell him I loved him more than anything in this world or the next. Kiss Mother for me. Keep the allotment going if you can. Your ever-loving husband, Private William Billy Evans, 11th Service, Battalion East Lancashire Regiment, Accrington, Pals. I sat on my bunk and read it twice. Then I opened my laptop and searched the company database. No William Evans. No Accrington Pals on current strength, obviously. I ran the service number through the MOD historical portal later that night. Nothing matched. Private William Evans, 11th East Lancs, had no record of surviving the war. Like most of his battalion, he'd disappeared into the first day's roll call of missing. I should have handed it in, logged it as found property. Instead, I folded it back into the envelope and put it under my pillow. Don't ask me why. I just couldn't let it go. That night, I woke at 03:47. Not gradually, snapped awake like someone had shaken me. The room was dark, except for the faint orange glow from the emergency light in the corridor seeping under the door. My heart was hammering. There was someone sitting on the end of my bed. He was slight, narrow shoulders, tin helmet pushed back. Brodie pattern. Khaki tunic, dark, with old blood across the chest and left sleeve. Half his face was gone. Shell splinter had taken the jaw and most of the left cheek. What remained was pale bone and shredded muscle under the brim shadow. He was holding the letter between ruined fingers. He looked at me with his one good eye. "You kept it," he said, Lancashire accent, soft. "Nobody ever kept my letters. They all said they would, but they didn't." I couldn't speak, couldn't move. My mouth tasted of copper. He reached out slowly. Those cold fingers brushed the envelope. The paper crumbled instantly, turned to fine brown dust that drifted down onto my blanket like cigarette ash. He smiled with what was left of his mouth. A small, sad thing. "Tell them we're still waiting for the Whistle Corps. Still waiting." Then he was gone. The room snapped back to normal. No cold spot. No smell. Just my own breathing loud in my ears and the distant clank of a radiator settling. I switched on the bedside lamp with shaking hands. The letter was whole again, lying flat on the pillow exactly where I'd left it. Not a speck of dust. I still have it. It's folded small in the bottom of my Bergen, inside a plastic wallet. I've never shown it to anyone. Not the OC, not the Padre, not even the lads. I don't know why. Maybe because some things aren't meant to be explained. Maybe because every time I touch it, I can still feel those cold fingers brushing mine. And somewhere, deep in the marrow, I know he's right. They're still waiting. Chapter 4. The Pals Reunion. Sergeant David Wilson, 2nd Battalion, the Rifles. 22 years in. Joined as a boy soldier at 16, did my first tour in Iraq at 19. On 2 in Helmand before I was 25. Staff jobs, instructor time at Brecon, back to the battalion as a platoon sergeant. I've buried mates, held lads while they bled out, watched drones turn villages into dust. I thought the worst thing the army could throw at me was already in the rearview mirror. I was wrong. This was May 2023. Friday night. The company had a 24-hour admin stand-down after a brutal field exercise on Salisbury Plain. 3 days of living in the mud, night attacks, live fire, the usual. Most of the lads had drawn their weekend pay and headed into Aldershot town for a proper session. Kebabs, cheap lager, maybe a fight if the civvies got mouthy. I was duty NCO. No choice. I drew the short straw, so I stayed behind to do the rounds, check the block, make sure nobody had left irons on or windows open. A Block 47 was quiet, unnaturally quiet, the kind of quiet that presses on your ears. I started at the ground floor, fire doors secure, drying room empty, showers dripping as always, then worked my way up the iron staircases. Each landing smelled the same: boot polish, wet kit, faint bleach from the cleaners. Routine. Comforting, almost. I reached the top floor, 4th level, room 412. The door was ajar, just a crack. Light spilling out. Warm, yellow, not the cold emergency strip. I could hear voices, low, laughing, singing. I pushed the door open slowly. 6 men sat round a small folding table that definitely wasn't ours. Regulation issue is grey metal. This was wood, scarred, like something dragged out of a trench dugout. A bottle of dark rum stood in the middle, label half peeled, no modern branding. A pack of greasy playing cards. A stub of candle burning in a tin of rifle grease, throwing long shadows up the walls. They were all in 1916 service dress. Accrington Powell's cap badges, glinting dull brass. Puttees, webbing, bayonets fixed. One had a field dressing tied round his head, blood crusted black at the edges. Another sat with both legs gone below the knee, stumps wrapped in filthy bandages. But he was upright, laughing, dealing cards like it was nothing. They looked up when I stepped in. No surprise, no fear. Just the easy recognition you get from one soldier to another. "Sant," the one with the head wound called out. Broad Lancashire. "Come and have a wet. We're celebrating. Took the village today. Proper scrap, mind. Jerry didn't half put up a fight." I didn't move. My hand was still on the door handle. The room smelled of woodbines, wet khaki, rum, and something metallic underneath. Blood, maybe, or cordite residue, that never quite leaves old uniforms. The legless lad grinned, teeth very white against the dirt on his face. "Don't stand there gawping, Sant. Pull up a sandbag. We've got brag on. Winner takes the rum. I don't know why I stepped inside. Maybe curiosity. Maybe the part of me that's still the young squaddy who never says no to a drink with mates." I closed the door behind me. The latch clicked like a rifle bolt. They dealt me in. 5-card brag. I played automatically. Soldiers' reflex. They talked. About girls back in Accrington. About the football pitch behind the mill where they used to train. About how Haig was finally going to sort the Boche out proper this time. One of them, youngest, barely shaving, kept glancing at the window like he expected dawn any minute. "Reckon we'll be in Bapaume by tea time tomorrow," he said, voice cracking a little. "Captain promised." The others nodded. Nobody contradicted him. We played 3 hands. I lost every one. They didn't take my money. There wasn't any. Just the rum passing round in a battered mess tin. It tasted of nothing and everything at once. Burnt sugar, smoke, regret. The candle guttered. A draught came from nowhere. The legless lad looked at me straight. "Time to go over, lads." They stood as one, rifles shouldered, bayonets fixed. The one with the head wound straightened his helmet. The youngest boy swallowed hard, but fell in. They turned toward the far wall, the one that faces out over the old Cambridge Military Hospital site. No door there, just red brick and peeling paint. They marched straight at it, boots thudding, left, right. No hesitation. When the lead man reached the wall, he didn't stop. He walked through, solid brick, no ripple, no sound, just gone. The others followed, single file, disappearing one after another until the room was empty. The table vanished. The cards, the rum, the candle, all gone. Only the regulation metal table and 2 plastic chairs remained. My own reflection stared back from the dark window, pale, wide-eyed, looking older than I felt. I stood there until the candle smell faded completely. Then I locked the door behind me, went down to the guardroom, poured myself the strongest brew I could find, and sat in silence until stand to. I never told the lads what I saw that night. Some things you carry alone, because if you say them out loud, they become real. And they were real enough already. Chapter 5. The General's Inspection. Captain James McCarthy, Support Company Commander, 2nd Battalion, the Rifles. Commissioned 2015 Sandhurst intake. Various staff and operational tours. Kabul embedded. Cyprus Sovereign Base Group. A stint at the Defence Academy. By July 2023, I was back with the battalion in Aldershot, commanding a mixed support company. Signals, logistics, Remu Light Aid Detachment. The usual collection of specialists who keep the rifle companies moving. I'd heard the stories filtering up from the ranks. At first, I treated them the way any officer would. Listen politely, nod, file under low-level welfare indicators, and move on. Soldiers see things in old blocks. Stress, fatigue, the cumulative weight of history. Block 47 had been standing since the 1890s. It carried the ghosts of a dozen generations. I told myself that was all it was. Then came the night of the 1st of July 2023, exactly 107 years to the day since the opening of the Somme offensive. I was in my office on the ground floor of the company block, technically part of 47, but with its own external door for admin access. Late paperwork, ORBAT updates, training directives, the usual Friday night grind before a weekend stand-down. The clock on the wall read 23:30. Outside, the garrison was quiet, except for the occasional distant shout from the town and the low hum of the ventilation system. The lights flickered once, standard brownout from the ancient grid, then went out completely. Emergency lighting kicked in, dull red strips along the skirting boards, turning everything the colour of old blood. The computer screen died. My phone showed no signal bars. I reached for the torch on my desk. Before my fingers closed on it, the door opened. No knock, no footsteps in the corridor, just the slow creak of the hinges. And then he was there, tall, impeccably turned out. Red gorget patches, red cap band, Sam Brown belt polished to mirror finish. Face instantly recognizable from every history textbook, every grainy photograph. The neat moustache, the steady gaze, the slight downturn at the corners of the mouth that suggested permanent disapproval. Field Marshal Sir Douglas Haig. He stepped inside and closed the door behind him without touching it. The latch clicked on its own. I stood up slowly. Training took over, salute coming halfway before my arm froze. He returned it, crisp, regulation, palm outward in the old style. For a long moment neither of us spoke. He walked to the wall map behind my desk. Modern training area overlay of Salisbury Plain, ranges marked in red and blue. What live firing danger areas hatched in yellow. He studied it for several seconds as though reading orders. "These new boys," he said at last. Voice low, gravelly, the Edinburgh burr softened by years of command. "Will they go over the top when the whistle blows?" I swallowed. My throat was dry as sandpaper. "Sir, they're trained, disciplined. They'll do their duty." He turned to face me fully. The red emergency light caught the medals on his chest, distorted, flickering, as though the ribbons were under water. "I told them the wire would be cut," he said. "I told them the guns would do their work. A week of bombardment. The heaviest the army had ever fired. They believed me. Every man in those battalions believed me." He moved to the window, looked out over the darkened parade square. Beyond it, the silhouette of the old Cambridge Military Hospital buildings, long since converted, but still standing like silent witnesses. "They went forward in good heart," he continued, "line after line, officers leading, NCOs dressing the ranks even as the Maxim opened. I watched from the ridge. I saw it all." He turned back. His eyes were ancient, far older than the man who had died in 1928. "Tell your men to keep their heads down, Captain. The machine guns are still there. They never left." A pause. The silence stretched until it hurt. Then he saluted again, slow, deliberate. "Carry on, McCarthy." He turned toward the closed door, walked straight at it. No hesitation, no pause. His body met the wood and passed through as though it were mist. The door never moved. No sound, just the faint smell left behind. Pipe tobacco, wet horse, oiled leather, and something sharper, cordite, perhaps, or old blood. I stood motionless until the emergency lights steadied and the main power returned with a soft click. The computer screen blinked back to life. My phone reconnected. On the carpet just inside the door, fresh, damp mud, not garrison soil, darker, stickier. The smell hit me again. Somme clay churned by shell fire mixed with rain and decay. I knelt, touched it. Real, cold. It stained my fingers black. I stayed in the office until dawn, didn't call anyone, didn't write it up. Just sat and stared at the mud until it dried to grey flakes. The next morning I had the carpet cleaned. Told the QM stores it was a spill from a brew. They didn't ask questions. But every time I walk past that door now, I pause, listen, because somewhere, in the quiet hours, I still hear the whistle. And I wonder if, when it sounds again, we'll have learned anything at all. Chapter 6. No Man's Land on the Parade Square. Private Aisha Khan, 2nd Battalion, the Rifles. Joined straight from college in Bradford, basic at Catterick, first posting to Aldershot in August 2023. I'm one of the newer faces in the platoon. First tour, still learning the rhythms of garrison life. The lads have been good about it. Protective, even. When the stories about Block 47 started circulating properly, they tried to keep me out of the worst of it. "Don't worry, lass," they'd say. "We'll handle the night stag. You get your head down." Bless them. They meant well. But you can't shield someone forever in a place where the past refuses to stay buried. I was on radio check duty one morning, early 0400 hours, the kind of shift nobody fights for. Up on the flat roof of Block 47, the highest point in that part of North Camp, antenna array pointed south toward the training areas. My job was simple. Test the company net every hour, log the signal strength, make sure nothing had drifted out of spec overnight. Routine, boring, safe. The parade square below was empty, floodlights off for once, power-saving measure after midnight. Just moonlight and the faint orange glow from the street lamps along Queen's Avenue. Mist had rolled in off the plain, thick enough to soften the edges of the barrack blocks opposite. I finished the check, logged it on my phone, and was about to head down when I heard it. Whistles. Not one, dozens. Short, sharp blasts echoing from every direction at once, the way company commanders used to signal the moment to go over the top. I froze. Then the square filled, not gradually. 1 second empty. The next, hundreds of men. Khaki waves stretching back into the mist as far as I could see. They advanced in ordered lines, 4 deep, rifles at the high port, bayonets fixed. No running at first, just that deliberate rolling walk you see in the old footage. Puttees, tin helmets, webbing bulging with grenades and extra magazines. Faces pale under the brims. Some smoking cigarettes right up until the last moment. The German machine guns opened up. Not imagined. Real. The unmistakable chatter of Maxim 08s. Rapid, mechanical, merciless. Tracers arced low across the square, stitching lines through the advancing ranks. Men started dropping. Not dramatically, not clutching their chests like in films. Just folding quietly at the knees, pitching forward, lying still. Others kept coming, stepping over the fallen, closing ranks automatically the way they'd been drilled. I gripped the parapet so hard my knuckles ached. My breath came in short bursts. I wanted to shout, to warn them, but my voice wouldn't come. One soldier broke from the line, young, 19 at most. Dark hair plastered under his helmet, eyes wide with the same mix of fear and determination I'd felt on my first live-fire exercise. He sprinted straight toward Block 47, straight toward me. The machine gun fire followed him, stitching the ground at his heels, but he didn't falter. He reached the base of the wall and kept running. Up. Boots scrabbling on the red brick, hands finding impossible handholds, climbing the sheer face like it was a ladder. The sound was wrong, nails on slate, metal studs sparking against stone. He moved fast, impossibly fast, until his face was level with mine. Just the other side of the low parapet. He stopped, hung there, suspended, blood trickling from a fresh wound above his left eye, breathing hard. He looked straight at me. "Tell them we're sorry we let them down," he said. Soft Yorkshire accent, almost apologetic. "We tried. We really tried." Then he pushed off the wall, pushed toward me. For a split second, I thought he'd come through the brick, land on the roof beside me. Instead, he passed straight through the parapet, through me, a rush of cold air and wet khaki that smelled of mud and cordite. My lungs seized. I staggered back, hit the antenna mast, slid down to sit against it. When I looked over the edge again, the square was empty. Mist still hung low. Floodlights still dark. But the grass, perfect parade ground turf, was flattened in long, wide swathes. Wave after wave of boot prints pressed into the earth, exactly where the lines had advanced. Some patches darker, wet-looking, though no rain had fallen. I stayed on the roof until the first grey light of dawn. Didn't move, didn't radio it in. Just sat with my back to the mast, knees drawn up, watching the mist burn off. When stand to sounded and the lads started moving about below, I climbed down, walked across the square to reach the cookhouse. My boots sank slightly in the flattened grass. The prints were still there, hundreds of them, overlapping, leading nowhere. I still can't walk across that square at night. Not alone. Because every time I do, I hear the whistles again. And I see that boy's face, still climbing, still trying, still falling short. and I wonder how many more nights he'll keep running at the wall before someone finally tells him it's over. Chapter 7. The Last Whistle Colour. Sergeant Robert Rob McAllister, 2nd Battalion, the Rifles. 28 years service. Started as a boy soldier in the depot, ended up running the company training wing. I've done everything the army could throw at me. Northern Ireland, Balkans, Iraq, Afghanistan twice, mentoring in Africa. I thought I was past being scared. Thought the only things that could still rattle me were incoming fire and bad news from home. I was wrong. By October 2023, the stories had spread through the battalion like damp rot. Nobody joked about them anymore. The block was quieter after dark. Lads took extra care locking doors, left lights on in the corridors, avoided being alone on the top floors, and some requested transfers. Most just kept their heads down and got on with it. I'd been avoiding Block 47 for weeks, slept in the gym stores on a camp bed in the back of my car, even crashed at a Maud's place off camp. Anything to stay out of those red brick walls after lights out. But you can't run forever when it's your own company. Duty calls. The night of the 18th of November 2023, the exact date the Somme offensive was officially called off in 1916. I drew company duty sergeant. Everyone else was away on a 48-hour field exercise. The block was mine, empty, silent, except for the wind rattling the windows and the occasional knock from the heating pipes. At 05:55, I was doing one last walk round before stand to, torch in hand. The corridor lights were dim, emergency strips only. I reached the ground floor main passage, the long one that runs the length of the block like a trench. Every door slammed open at once, not one at a time. All of them. A single deafening crash that echoed off the iron staircases. I froze. They were all there. Hundreds. Lined up shoulder to shoulder down both sides of the corridor. Khaki tunics, puttees, tin helmets. Some bandaged, some bleeding. Some missing pieces. The boy with no jaw. The Welsh lad from the showers. The Accrington pals from the card game. Billy Evans at the front, letter still clutched in one ruined hand. Faces I recognised from every story told in whispers over the last 18 months. At the very head of the formation stood Field Marshal Haig. Immaculate. Red tabs gleaming under the orange light. He looked straight at me. No words at first. Just that steady, an unblinking gaze. Then one word. Low, commanding. Whistle. The sound came immediately. A single, piercing blast from a 1916 officer's whistle, high, shrill, cutting through the silence like a bayonet. Every man in the corridor stiffened. Shoulders squared. Rifles came to the slope. They turned as one. A perfect battalion wheel. Facing the far end wall. The one that looks out toward the old Cambridge Military Hospital. They began to march. Boots striking concrete in unison, left, right, slow, deliberate. The sound built until it filled the entire block. No voices, no singing. Just the relentless tramp of hobnailed boots and the faint metallic clink of equipment. When the lead rank reached the wall, they didn't slow. They walked straight into the brick, passed through, vanished. Rank after rank followed. Billy Evans paused for half a second as he drew level with me. He looked across. One good eye met mine. Then he was gone too. The last man stepped through. The corridor fell silent again. Doors still open. Lights still dim. No mud, no blood, no smell. Just me, standing alone with the torch shaking in my hand. I stayed there until the first grey light showed at the windows. Didn't move, didn't breathe properly. When the exercise party returned at 700, they found me sitting on the floor outside my office, back against the wall, Billy Evans' letter open in my lap. I didn't explain, just handed the duty over, went to my room and locked the door. I haven't slept a full night since. Sometimes, in the small hours, I still hear it. That single whistle, clear as the day it sounded over the wire in 1916. And I wonder if it will ever stop calling, or if one day we'll all have to answer.